same guidelines we did at Stanford? Or
Oh, recording in progress. That's excellent.
Well, I just
where
Why
you-
not?
Kirsten asked me to record this session, and I'd forgotten entirely until just now. And because
Right,
She
just
asked
missed the
you
most
to take
interesting
down
part.
the one that's
this
on
is
YouTube.
this is 4 in the morning for her, and then later she's going to be away. So she wanted me to post it, so it'll be a partial post.
No, she did mention something. She said, Ralph, it's up on YouTube. Now, I don't think anyone's going to troll YouTube to talk to us, but I'm not good at censoring myself in an intimate environment. So are all our Zooms on YouTube?
No, there's just one.
Like,
And when I post this one, I'll erase the other one.
okay, good. Because Robin, you're much more diplomatic. You're not mentioning the famous person, of course.
No, no.
Who the
Someone
famous
would work it
person
out, wouldn't they?
is.
They'll just work it out. They go Paris, they go crying, they go famous person. Anyway.
I won't tell you what
You
I
know,
did with
that's-
Kurt Vonnegut the other day. No.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, he's been dead for quite a while.
I know.
If you did something with his body, we don't need that on YouTube.
No, we don't need that on YouTube.
So when you critique your peers, Robin, do you do it like we used to do at Stanford, sort of, looking for the positive things and then looking for some things to improve, or is there a format that you guys follow?
No, there's not a format. It's just those sort of benign kind of instructions, like treat it as though you're solving a puzzle, is what they say. Look at it, solving a puzzle. What are they trying to do? What do you notice? What's working? What would you suggest? Any sense of where it could go? That sort of thing. It's all the same. So you do a line edit and you do a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And have you found your colleagues helpful too, or mainly the teacher?
That varies. That really varies. I've only had one who was a monster. But
There was one you said that was sort of really politically, everything had to be politically correct, or she said you couldn't write about nannies or something.
No, she's come good. We get on famously now. No, that was good. She realized I wasn't a wrong one. No, but this other one, she was not at all nice, but that's not just to do with me. That's human nature. That's her. That's her. Yeah.
I thought Stanford had a very good format for critique that basically give a short indication of what happens in a piece of writing that you've submitted. Talk about the things that you especially like, that appeal to you, and then what kind of suggestions do you have for changes or improvements? I thought that was a very positive oriented kind of an approach, and you had to show. I mean, it's useful if someone expresses an understanding of what you've written. It's not just plot summary. Although sometimes that's what people wrote, but it's more, well, what's the author trying to do in this chapter?
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked about that course that I took with Garth Greenwell last year, remember? And it was on style. And so we were just looking at the mechanics of the writer. So it didn't matter whether you liked it or hated it, it wasn't about that. It was just like a reading as an observer saying, oh, look they use semicolons when they write, or look, they use lots of adjectives, or oh, that's interesting. They write in, first person, then switch to whatever. So, kind of in a detached manner. So that was good and plus his classes, of course, everyone was writing pretty risque material, about sexual encounters and stuff. And there were a lot of gay writers and stuff. So, some of it could be like, if you really reacted to it like, but it was just good to look at the mechanics and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. The use of dialogue. But also, I wanted to ask you, Ralph and Marianne too, you said earlier that it was really important to have a reader for your books. And Ralph, why do you think that's important? I mean, because I need to do that for my novel. I need to send,
Yeah.
I have to go to beta readers, and I haven't done it. I've been sort of scared to. I don't know why. I don't feel like getting the criticism, but I need it.
Well, I think, I mean, you are writing the book for an audience.
For
So this is a test of that audience. But
right.
even though one can read books on how to revise and so on, it's sometimes like that's a trouble I'm having right now with a contemporary novel, Under Every Leaf. I'm having great trouble sort of sitting back and trying to see what's there and how could it be improved? Are there parts that should be removed? What is the essence of it? Great trouble. Now I have to confess, I've been exchanging some small parts of it with Marianne, who's given me terrific suggestions. But I think it's useful to have someone also to be a beta reader, essentially be another reader who can look at it and give you their general thoughts on it and maybe some more specifics to deal with. Well, is this character not developed or, doesn't fit in with the rest of the other characters? But we're talking about bigger things, not sort of line edits so much. I mean, that's useful always, but
Right.
yeah, and I think it's useful to share the whole book once you've done a draft. That's probably the most useful thing. I don't know who I'm going to try to inflict my book on yet, but
What I'm finding is it's useful really to get as many people as you can, because you in a way you can feel, and I've read about this and I felt comforted by it, because he said for 2 days you will feel completely disoriented. You will feel total, complete, stripped to the bone confusion. But then if you just put it away, certain things will resonate with you, and yes, I see. Or even if they get it totally wrong, what they put their finger on something that's wrong, but they don't have the skills to articulate exactly what's wrong, but they put their index finger on something, they've alerted you. So I think all of that was helpful.
But it's good to have someone, isn't it, that sort of maybe doesn't know you that well, or someone that,
Yeah.
because I'm asking this because I remember long ago, my finished Heart of the Aria, and I was all excited about it. And I asked my good buddies, my friends, if they wanted to read it. Of course, they all wanted to read it. But of course, it is based on, and it's not anyway, they read it, but they were sort of they didn't know anything, they were like lining, said, oh, you forgot to put in a period here. And,
Yes,
the paragraph, stuff like that. I was like, they don't worry about that. And they were very kind. And they sent me, on page 21, there's a typo. It's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I sent it to my sister-in-law, and then she showed it to my brother, and I didn't want my brother to read it. And he read it and he got really offended because, he thought I was making Minnesotans sound like Hicks, and he's from stuff like that. And I thought, so I am not going to send it to anyone in my family. And I don't, and then, I'd like to send it to someone, not even you guys, because you've seen so much of it. I want to see, someone's never read this or seen anything, and just like a reader who would buy it on Amazon, and get an objective feel. But just an overview, like where were you bored? Where did you stop reading? Or what did you like? Just that.
Yeah. No, I had to discount one reader who was a friend. And she's not a writer, and she's just a reader. She's a book club reader though, and she reads this kind of book. And I just had to read through the lines, because she said, sort of, well, your dialogue is good. Thank you. And she said, oh, well, I felt it was way too short. It's 93,000 words. I got to cut 20. Yeah, I just felt, I mean, she really likes big, fat Jonathan Franzen books, so, and I was like, I will never get that opportunity to get that many words, it's just not gonna happen. But still, what she did tell me was that she was bored. When someone tells you there's not enough, they're unsatisfied. So that's what I mean by trying to interpret. But you're right.
Yeah.
People who don't know you are the ideal. And I found this other site where there were beta readers, but they're all genre. They're YA and romance.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're English and they're from all over the world. And that would not be useful to you. It's
No.
tough. It's tough, but it's really vital. And
Yeah.
Because as you say, Ralph, we aren't just writing this for ourselves. We are hoping that someday readers we don't know will want to plunk down their, $2.99 or whatever it is to
Yeah.
read. Or
Ralph,
willing
have
to
you,
get it free on some giveaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
have you finished Under the Leaf, Ralph? Have you finished
I
it?
finished a draft of it quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm now going through it for about the third or fourth time. But I find that I'm making tiny grammatical changes and not really seeing how to make the bigger picture changes if they're necessary, and they probably are.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I find that really challenging. And sometimes I go and I'm starting this other novel that's a historical piece, but all the action has to happen, given the setting I picked, with pretty much within 2 weeks. And it's not enough for, I mean, I don't know whether it's a novel about interpersonal relationships or whether it's about sort of political social circumstances. It certainly the latter plays largely into what happens, but nevertheless, so I'm puzzled about how to proceed with that. I've written a couple of what could stand as short stories for it, but find it hard to carry on with it. So I'm in a kind of a stuck moment at this time. I'm also spending some time on, I write quite quickly, and I've had the novel that I wrote while I was at Stanford, and then I had a number of different reviewers. Twitch, the Foundling's Quest. I think I shared some of that when I was revising it with the group very early on when we first started. And so I'm having that self-published, and
Good.
promotion hasn't begun yet of it. So it's available at quite a few different sites. But I mean, even if it shows up on Amazon.com, Amazon Canada, Amazon UK, and a whole lot of other sites, it's not going to make much movement. There won't be many sales until you actually get some promotion done of it. And
Are you promoting it within the same people that did the confessions of
no,
that novel? Different one.
This one's in the States. It's in Wyoming.
Oh,
I'm also getting, and this will take some time, the prequel to Bleak House. I'm getting that published as well. So
Good.
that's partly my dilemma why I can't afford to get any professional second readers right now, because I put my money out on getting these books out, and I'm going to promote them to the extent I can. What I would like is have it published, have Hawden, the prequel to Bleak House. I'd like to have it published in England, because there's two sections of British genocide in it, and that would cause a stir. And also the Dickensians would probably hate it, and that might spark some interest and get some sales. So
Yeah. Oh,
uh,
that's good that you're
so,
doing that. That's great.
well,
Mm.
it's just that, you know, one's getting on after a period of time, and those manuscripts are just sitting there. And I got to the stage in both of them that I couldn't think of any further revisions. Um, so
Yeah, Rebecca wrote when we were communicating the other day, she said, Anne, don't you should be writing, don't you think haven't you considered self-publishing? Because I asked her, and now I'm starting to think about it again. I thought, well, maybe I should just try to self-publish
yeah,
just for
well,
the satisfaction of seeing
I
it
sent out
print.
about 75 queries on Twitch, and
Yeah,
I've had a few nibbles on it in terms of people wanting to look at the whole manuscript, but it didn't ultimately bite on it. So
yeah, I haven't sent out many queries since I finished this work with the editor, and they've all come back negative. Nobody's asked to read the manuscript, and I don't know, I don't have my heart in it anymore. It's like, I don't feel like sending it out to 50 more
yeah,
people. I don't know, but I guess I would have to, or self-publish. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
well, one of them is it's called Austin Macaulay. It's a hybrid publisher. In other words,
Mm-hmm,
they don't accept everything that's sent them.
mm-hmm,
You still have to pay a certain amount.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyways, we'll see how those go. And when I get back to Canada, I'll start doing at least some online promotion.
How did the Confessions, did that sell a bit? Or
For a period of time, it sold not too badly.
yeah,
But I never did have a launch or do anything significant by way of
the pandemic hit, right? That was
pandemic.
right around the-
Yeah. No, I was going to have a radio interview and
Mhm.
but the guy who was going to interview wanted it to be after a significant size launch, and I had it booked just before the pandemic started and had to call it off. So I don't know. I'm not
How about, yeah, sorry.
like
Go
Rebecca
on.
is about marketing.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's amazing. She knocks my socks off.
Who? Oh, Rebecca. Yeah, I
Rebecca.
wish she would be our agent.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
could become an agent. Yeah, that's an
She
idea.
would be able to sell all her books, I'm sure.
Well, I talked to her about that, but she wasn't interested. I said, not so much being agenting, but I said, have you ever thought of doing a kind of co-op where you get, you're an imprint. So you're not just your book, but you're, 5 or 6 or 10 other writers of a sort, of you that you, I don't think she wasn't interested in it, because I think that if you're someone like her who's got that sort of that brain for promotion and business that she's had from her
Yeah.
advertising days, and then I wouldn't say she was farming, because it was hilarious what she and Gary did. They had this, they had sort of
Wonderful.
like, I mean, I looked like a lot of lavender to me when we went there. But Gary said, that's not a business. Apparently, she gets the stuff from France and then takes a little off what they grow in the front yard and puts it in the sachet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Locally grown. And I love that she does that. It's fine. I think that's terrific. But it's like he just said, that's not selling as much product as they're selling. So, but so I think that there's a little bit of that too, that if she was but I don't know anything about business, but I mean, if she did, if she was with a group, I think that would be a stronger mark in the world of historical fiction, and you knew that you were going to kind of get the way they used to do, the way they still do with certain imprints, Ballantine books. When you buy a Ballantine book, it's going to be a certain kind of book. So but anyway.
Well, Rebecca and Gary traveled like all over the United States with things like big cutout figures of her characters that would stand up during her next to her when she was giving her promo in, I don't know, big bookstores and things like that. So, I mean, she really knows how to market. And well, it's mostly partially rereading her Champagne Widows. Now it's been published, so I'm rereading it on Kindle. And actually, between the time she showed it to us and the publishing time, there's quite a few improvements in it.
Yes, I noticed that too. Yeah. I haven't quite I put it aside because I feel in trying to learn, I've got so many books that I've got to read to improve my own writing. But I mean, and not that reading Rebecca's work would not improve my own writing, but it's just not the genre that I'm into. So I put it aside, but I really feel obliged to do that. I'd love to ask you, do these Goodreads 5 stars mean anything? I mean,
Goodreads, yeah, I think people read. I look at Goodreads all the time to get recommendations.
do you?
Yeah. It's a good place to,
They have deals as well to buy books cheaply. But
it's a good place to find books to read and read reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're reading readers' reviews. Yeah. I find it useful, but I mean, for an unknown writer, does it make a difference? Like, I suppose if you're writing a genre, people can't get enough of it. If it's, say, romance or historical fiction or, murder or something like that, so they would be interested. But for general crossover literary fiction, would they seek out an unknown writer? I don't know. I do get the impression that most sort of debut or unknown writers, it's their friends sort of writing 5 stars.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just that, social media, you have to have your book out there on Goodreads, no matter who you are, you just do in this day and age. I mean, or nobody will read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Ralph, is
how
other
did
than
you
your
go
look.
with oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead.
How did you go with the finishing your book?
The editing. Yeah, I finished it. I did it, it's done. And then I just kind of like, I don't know, I was sick of it, and I queried, I sent out about 10 queries, and then summer came along and I've been really lazy and I haven't been writing very much at all. And I just feel like, what I need is, I think I do need some beta readers to read it through, because I can't even get myself to even read through it. I mean, I kind of did, but I worked on it so long, and the drafts, and I love this working with this woman. I guess, I learned a lot from her. It was like taking a private writing class, and I really, really think it was valuable. But then just that whole thing of trying to, I don't know, I have to feel accomplished because I wrote a novel. We all should feel accomplished because we've written novels, right? But getting it published is another matter. So I really do want us to start on that, start another draft of that other novel. That I sent some excerpts to you guys about the family moving in Spain. So I don't know. I don't know what my life is. I don't know. I've distanced myself from writing lately, and then it's bad because I think, when you're writing, I think you really do need to keep that daily routine. And my best writing was when I was writing a little bit every day, and also this contact, exchanging with other writers. It's important, all that stuff, I think, and I haven't been doing that, and I realize so I got to get back into it. Yeah, I don't know. What about you, Robin? Are you feeling good about your novel? Are you going to publish it one day, or?
Well, I had one of those experiences yesterday. Because I live in this sort of community, this green village, sort of environmental community, and some of the people who wanted to take me out to lunch since I'd come back, and I'm not really close to them. I mean, they're acquaintances. I like to see them over, the paddock sort of thing. But anyway, I went out to dinner with them, out to lunch with them, and then they said, "Have you finished your book?" And And I said, oh, you know, it's good. And they said, you know, are you going to publish it? And I said, well, you know, I hope so, but it's a challenging matter. People all over the world are trying to publish their books. They said, but it's nice to have a hobby, isn't it? And as soon as they said that, I felt this other
Hobby? What do you mean, hobby?
rising up. I thought, you wait. I thought, oh dear. So yes, I clearly wasn't as laid back as I was.
Yeah, they don't know, all those hours that you've spent on this.
That's
you know,
right. That's
work
right.
that's gone into it, and the effort.
Crocheting a novel on the front porch. Yes.
And
Marianne, how did you go with your last round with Josh? Did he like your ending?
Well, you know, we did it piecemeal. We ended, I was telling others, we had worked together with this every week, you know, X amount of pages, 30, maybe 40. And then the first 9 weeks were me rewriting the whole beginning. And he was really strong, you know, he had very strong opinions, and I was very obedient. And now I've thrown away his suggestion. I've done originally what, you know, meeting, you know, when Judy and Sue meet, and I've got them as a lesbian lover, and I've got all this stuff. And so that's why I'm like, you know, I said, you know, I don't know that you're gonna like this, but I'm paying him. And he said, it's none of my business what I like. It does this thing. I said, yes, that's what I'm looking for. Does it structurally work? So I'm really starting all over again. And as I mentioned earlier, Kirsten was a great reader, and she only was able to manage the first 100 pages, but she just identified huge timeline bloopers, which Josh had never identified because we were working week by week. So they're almost like short stories that I was working on. And so I said, I'd really like, before I go out, for you to read this with a very, very critical eye, as a whole. And so that's where we are. Yeah. And I mean, I've been flip-flopping all over. Sometimes it's been agony, because I felt like I was losing my mind. I thought that I had maybe 2 books. Did I have, you know, a kind of series of the daughter, the mother, and then Roz. So for a while that seemed to make sense. And then sort of the high or the low or the drug, you know, I woke up sober and thought, it's crazy. And even Josh, he said, let's Zoom. And in the state I was in, somehow I got the timeline mixed up. So he was left hanging, and then we tried again. And anyway, and he's like, what's going on with you? Now they want 3 books? Like, he's like, what do you want from me? He showed irritation. And I could blame him. So I said, well, I just don't know what I have. But now that with I must say, with Kirsten's, you know, reading, and me really having not looked at it for 2 weeks, I'm just cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. So I think I have 1 book in 2 or 3 parts, you know, big parts, smaller. But I'm only at page 100 and whatever, 108. But I mean, I'm making ages, sort of, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing an outline as I'm reading what exactly happens and highlighting the ages. Judy is 6 months, Minnie is this age, because I've changed the ages so much, you know, that she had her when she was 16, or she had her when she was 19. And it's very helpful, actually. That Tiffany Yates Martin interviewed that woman, that writer who did that. She outlined as she was rewriting to just sort of see flow and timelines and stuff. I don't know. I'm yammering. I don't think I answered your question. Did Josh see? No. So November 6th I'm sending the whole book to him. And I asked him, could we not Zoom, actually? Because I don't have the presence. I mean, he'll just say things to me, and I'll just digest, ingest them. But I won't say, like, why don't you want them to be lesbians? Why did you feel? Because I won't think, I'll just listen. So I said, could you write it down? Could you write your criticisms in bullet form, of things that need to be addressed, things that aren't working? So that's what I want to pay for, and it's costing me $1,200. I don't know. Is that normal for the market of a manuscript assessment? And do you know?
$1,200.
Anyone know?
I don't know. I guess so. I can't remember. I paid, maybe it depends. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I paid this editor in the UK. I paid her by hour. You know, what did she charge? 35 pounds an hour, no, something like that. What was it? 30 pounds an hour. I can't remember now. But yeah, I mean, it's in the ballpark, Marianne, I think. Yeah.
I paid about, I think about $1,100 for Dinah, who's professional editor, to give me an editorial assessment for, I think it was a little less for Concession Street Secrets, and I also had her do Twitch.
April, May. I worked with this editor for 5 months. I think actually it's a good deal in a way, because, and I was 300 times 5, that would be 1,500, but pounds though. That's a lot more. That's not dollars.
5
So that
months
was,
that? Wow.
that was costly. That would be, well, I average about 300 a month, I think. I'll have to look back on what I spent. I don't know. I don't even want to think about it.
Actually.
But I mean, that was, you know, line, you know, chapter by chapter, everything. But I mean, and then the assessments I did with Reed C back in the day with that really talented person too, I think it was 600. And then it was, if you just wanted an overview, and then it was 1,200 or something, if you wanted a more detailed look at the whole manuscript. I can't remember what it was. But
Someone recommended to me a New York woman, and I contacted her, and we had some yaks and blah blah blah. And then she said it would be 3,000 American dollars, and I went, oh, I just do it myself.
Yeah, really.
It was just too much.
That's why, you know, groups like ours are good, you know, think of all the good critiquing we've done for each other and help, you know, and it was
Yeah.
free.
We should be charging each other, you know?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
but you know what you say is true though, Ann. It is better for people who don't know you and don't know the book. Those
Yeah.
fresh eyes of people who are just seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I would like to know who my ideal reader is. You know, I think of even like these college students I'm teaching, it'd be somebody in their 20s, or if somebody likes to sing and doesn't know anything about the, you know, the singing world, and they, you know, and it's a love story and tragic love story, and they, oh, this is interesting. Well, that would be my ideal reader, I guess. But I'd like to find that ideal reader and that read it and said, oh, I really like this. Yeah. So I don't know. I do have a person, I think I'm going to send it to her, except that she's the one that organizes the Madrid, the book club that I'm in. And I'm afraid if I send it to her and she doesn't like it, then it'll make, you know what I mean? It's like, I do know her. She's not a good friend, but she's a friend. And then, you know, and then I'll be seeing her and she'll have to say something nice about my novel, even though she doesn't like it. I don't know. It's why I like to send it to a total stranger, you know, that's not invested in it, you know.
Yeah.
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 But, yeah, oh well. So, are you guys reading anything interesting?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm on a real tear. I'm reading, I just finished Bill. Do you know Bill Clegg? Bill Clegg, he's a writer and an
Agent. Yeah.
but he wrote 2 novels and 2 memoirs of his drug addiction world.
Oh.
And so I really enjoyed those. I mean, as you can, but someone debasing themselves, but I thought, I'm going to pick up some tips for Judy's food binging. And Sally Rooney's latest book, which is, I really like Sally Rooney.
Oh, I like Sally Rooney too. And I've read the first 2 books. I know. And also I'll probably read the 3rd one too. Okay.
And
So
she
lots
does
of
an omniscient narration. Talk about wanting to discuss something for just technique. She writes it from an almost formal omniscient narrator. And Bill Clegg too uses no quotation marks for dialogue. He just writes the dialogue in it. He used italics and he didn't want to, but the publisher insisted. And Sally Rooney does not use italics. She just writes it within. So it's, I don't know if you'd call it stream of consciousness, but, and where I get really flummoxed still is so many writers now, contemporary writers seem to be writing what seems to me telling and exposition, you know. So one critique I got back from one journalist writer, she said, this is expository here, expository there. And I had just been, I suppose, copying and reading or influenced by Sally Rooney and Bill Clegg. And Bill Clegg's novels are almost entirely telling, almost entirely. There's the occasional, you know, dollop of dialogue, very, very rarely. It's a kind of, I mean, I don't do anything like that, but I like it. And so that's where you get the difficulty with feedback. You know, some people say, because I suppose the difference, it's expository if it's telling in a clunky good way, and it's brilliant if it's telling and in a good way, in well done. Do you know what I mean? So I think we call it expository if we're bored. And it's stream of consciousness and brilliant if it's, you know, James Joyce. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying at all? Does this make sense?
I think so. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. But every author, all the brilliant authors they're brilliant in their own ways. I mean, Sally Rooney's, you know, specifically, I don't know, she's a different kind of writer. I was just thinking about, I started reading War and Peace. I was going to, you know, I love Tolstoy and so much. I read Anna Karenina during the pandemic, and anyway, there's this group called A Public Space. I don't know if you guys know of it, but and they're on Twitter. They have a group reading, like people around the world are reading War and Peace. And now of course I've fallen behind, but anyway, but to your point, to what you were just saying, you know, I just love the way Tolstoy, you know, besides he's telling this great story in the dialogue, but then he always tells you, like, you know, what each character is thinking, what they want. You know, it's expository. He's saying, well, and the reason she thought that he was really very rude and that she would put him in his spot. And so she told him to, you know, please, you know, and but you're just so engrossed in the whole story. He's just such a great, you know, storyteller, basically. He just is wonderful, and you don't mind, and you want him to tell you that. I said, and then he was really angry because she wouldn't, you know, accept his, you know, apologies, and so then he went and he stewed about it for the next and you're like, it's telling, you know, but yeah, and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah. And there's all these conflicts all the time, you know. Oh,
Style and fashion, it can be a little bit constricting. I mean, you know how styles and fashions come and go, in clothing and in literature. So what was, you know, we hit this convention, and it's an unfortunate convention, especially for emerging writers or debut writers, because it's like you shut down right away. You're not going to be given a chance that way. When I was in children's books, starting writing, I wrote this book, Brendan Edward, and there was the convention at the time that animals cannot speak to people. It was Susan Hirschman started it. She was a you know, the doyen of children's books in New York, and I don't know, she woke up one day and said animals cannot speak to people. So, you know, you're taking that book to the Bologna.
what about Dr. Seuss on all the animals?
Babar? What about you know,
Are you my mother?
Just, it's like, no, not anymore. And then so that they had that constriction for a few decades, and Susan Hirschman, you know, boohoo, died, and then animals can now talk to people. So it's like, yahoo! So we have some really charming books with animals talking to people. So it's, I don't know, it's it is hard to try to get around, to try to get your own voice heard, and to do it well, and within the confines of what's acceptable protocol for you know, lowlies like us, or speak for myself, like me. Yeah.
I'm reading a very long book. It's actually 4 books, but it's the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante. And,
wonderful.
I'm on the 4th book. Now, when I started it, I wasn't sure I was going to continue. Partly the style is very different. She uses italics sometimes instead of just quotation marks around when someone's speaking. But it's not the style. It's an amazing depth of character and quite a large field of characters in Italy.
Yeah.
And the main character, Lino, is a writer, and so her struggles with writing and her partial successes are fascinating, and also the kind of rough Italian society that existed at the time is being told.
I adored those books. I adored that.
Did you read the
So
Neapolitan ones?
Oh, yeah, I was really into Elena Ferrante. Yeah, when I was with you guys, yeah, 3 years ago, I devoured those books. I just
Yeah,
loved them.
1,500 words in one story, basically. But,
Really good from beginning to end. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really liking it, and
And she has a particular style. Yeah, it's a style of writing. It's it's
but
interesting. Yeah.
you get used to it, and it seems to fit properly the kind of thoughts and what she's trying to convey, and fascinating characters. And
Yeah.
psychology of them seems so deep, and so I'm reading that, and the occasional taking little dips into Rebecca's book, and sometimes some other books, but that's my.
There's some good books coming out by good authors. Colm Toibin is coming out with The Magician, which is based on Thomas Mann's life, which I want to read. It's on my list. And Anthony Doerr just published a new novel called Cloud Cuckoo Land or something. I just bought it.
And Josh interviewed him for
Oh, really?
Poets and Writers.
Oh, cool. This book looks really interesting and challenging. Yeah, and I've got a whole bunch on my list. Yeah, and I read this other book by it's called The Song of Achilles, and she's also written Circe. And what is the name of this author? Can't remember. Madeline Miller, is that right? Anyway, she was a debut author with The Song of Achilles, and she's a graduate of Brown University. She's a classic scholar. And so her book, so she's really, really versed, she knows everything about, Greece. And I read it because we were going to Greece for a wedding. And I thought this is such an interesting style because she wrote it sort of in this florid way, like lots of, alliteration and similes, and kind of as though it were written by, Homer or a poet back then, kind of the style, not Homer, but I don't know, a more formal style. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good combination of story and her own personal style. But she was a debut writer, it became a big hit. So you never know, what's going to become a big hit. Who would think?
Who's the second
Story
one?
about
You mentioned Colm Toibin. Who was the second that you mentioned?
The second one was Anthony Doerr, who wrote
All the Light We Cannot See.
Yeah,
That's right.
I read that.
Yeah, so this just came out like yesterday or something. So
Really?
so those two authors were really good.
Yeah, I really like Toibin, and I liked Doerr's book as well.
Yeah. What about you, Robin? Are you reading anything good?
Yeah, I'm reading a book of short stories, American short stories, and one of them has really taken my fancy. I hadn't read any of his stuff before. Dennis Johnson. Has anyone read any of his? He is a fantastic short story writer. Like fantastic. And so that I'm very I'm very engaged with that at the minute.
Josh is a huge fan of Dennis Johnson. He's his hero.
Is he? Yeah. Well, he's very good, I think.
Have you been writing short stories, Robin, by any chance?
Yeah, I've been
short pieces.
I've been doing a little bit. I'm trying to work out what sort of short story I want to write. So I'm reading different. Someone put me onto a book called The Whites, which was written in Africa, and by a highly intellectual kind of writer, and a very kind of opinionated writer. So I don't actually, you know, that thing where you can feel a real distance from the writer, that you don't actually like the writer, but you can see how clever they are. So I'm sort of reading that, and at the same time reading this Dennis Johnson, and also some of the old early American, you know, mid 20th century American writers.
I love that era.
Yeah,
Me too.
Beaver and
yeah.
all that. The Enormous Radio. I'll never forget the Enormous Radio. I could read it over and over again.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. So
Did you say mid-century American writers?
yes.
Yeah, like Steinbeck and others.
No, well, I don't. Did he write short stories? I don't think I've read any.
Oh, you're reading short
I
stories.
only read
Oh,
his
yeah.
novels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what I've been interested in reading. I mean, there's lots of books I have to read for the course, and that's been. I read one. I was thinking about you, Ralph. Indian Horse. You read that?
I have, by Wagamese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
The
Yeah.
author's name, Wagamese. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought, yeah, you were talking about like the hideous things that happened with the First Nation people in Canada and the schools, those Catholic
Yeah.
schools and whatnot, and this is a very well written but grueling short read.
Yeah.
So I've read that recently.
Well, today is actually a national holiday of reconciliation and what is it? Hope? What is it, Marianne? It's a national holiday, anyways.
Yeah.
And the idea, I mean, there's a sign up in one place that has the number of sort of bodies that they've discovered outside of these residential schools, and it runs up to about 5,300, and they've only just started looking. So terrible.
It's terrible.
They want the Pope to fly to Canada to apologize.
Yeah. Well, least he can do, really. Least he can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
just an apology is probably not enough. I mean, having worked with and on issues relating to Indigenous people in Canada, I can see, I mean, their lifespan is so much shorter than that of the average other people. And they live in terrible conditions, most of them. And they just don't have the opportunities. And racism is rife.
Yeah. It's exactly the same in Australia. Exactly the same.
Is that right? With the Aborigine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They used to call Indigenous people here Aboriginal to get away from calling them Indians. That was thought to be more appropriate. But that too was found to be objectionable. So they're now Indigenous.
Yeah, they go through different fashions. I mean, it's the same here, but a friend of mine who's an Aboriginal woman, I said to her, look, I was really confused now. Was I supposed to say Indigenous? And she said, yeah, if you're writing a paper or something, say Indigenous. But if you're talking to us, just say Aboriginal. You know? And that's what they say amongst themselves, but they don't like Aborigine. She said, don't use that. That's so it's like with my brother, you know, changing over time, Down syndrome, different things that people were called, and sometimes they were acceptable at the time, and then as times changed, it became less acceptable. I think it's more the intent that with which you offer it.
That novel you mentioned by Richard Wagamese is set mostly in Manitoba.
Saskatchewan. Oh, Manitoba.
Well, mostly on the prairies. But yeah, it was interesting how subtly he dealt with that one priest who seemed to be the good guy, who was sent to this this boy out to play hockey and so on.
Mm.
And yet he was sexually molesting him the whole time.
Mm. Mm.
It was a real revelation near the end of the novel.
Yeah.
But, I've got this is relating to reading, but I've got a cycle of poems about around the graveside of my grandfather who died in 1918, my paternal grandfather who died of well, they used to call it the Spanish flu, but now they call it the 1918 pandemic. But he died in, and I don't know, awful things happened with his family, but afterwards. But I have a cycle of poems that sort of go into the mind of each of the people, each of the folks gathered around his graveside as he's being buried. And it's being published in an anthology of writings on pandemics. That'll be coming out early next month, I think.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Excellent. I look forward to that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I could send the manuscript copy of it out to you.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Wow,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
great.
Guys, continue on, but I do have to duck out because
I do too, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So
One question before you go. I set the Zooms at times that this early one would fit somewhat with you, Robin.
Yes.
And I set one for 8 o'clock tonight, thinking that Kirsten would be able to join, but she says she can't. She would have joined us if she'd gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning for this one. But she's going to be traveling. So I think I'm going to cancel that unless you'd like to do another one. But we kind of talked
I won't be
about
able to.
Can't
I won't
say
be-
save it for next time. Let's do this again, you know, in a couple of weeks or in a month or something
Yeah.
or whatever.
Hmm.
yeah.
That'd be
So
lovely.
I'll send out a note and cancel it, that second
Yeah.
one.
And then, you know, I think also I'd like to, you know, maybe in the future when, if we are all writing, you know, I'm interested in exchanging again at some point, but right at the moment, I'm not doing anything, but, you know, I think we're a good group and we know each other and, you know, it's really nice to see you all again.
Yeah,
And, you know, I just want to throw that out there.
that's
If-
great, Anne.
if, You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I will make the time and I don't know, I'd like to do that. So, okay, well, we'll keep talking and Ralph, it's great that you set this up and
Yeah,
let's do it again.
We'll
Whenever.
do it again, and eventually, Robin, you'll be going ahead by an hour and we'll be going back by an hour. And so we'll be able to work it out so that all 5 of us can get on at the same time.
Yeah, right. That'd be
Oh.
great. Yeah.
This is such a challenge. It's amazing that we stayed together. So really, it is amazing with all
Yeah,
the time
yeah.
zones. It's
That is
incredible.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Anyway,
Okay, well,
Anyway.
take care and
Bye,
happy
everyone.
writing.
See you all.
Till
Yeah,
next
bye-bye.
time.
thanks. Enjoy your time in France, Ralph. That's great that you're there. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, bye.
See you,
Bye.
bye. See you, Kirsten.